Arsenal crash out of the UEFA Champions League at the semi-final stage. I've got to be honest, I'm not sure I'm ready to talk about this one in detail just yet, but we're going to do it anyway. This is the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast with me, Harry Symeou, coming to you live from the French capital of Paris. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, how are we doing? Welcome back to the show. I'd have hoped to have been bringing you this show under more celebratory circumstances. What I will say is that had we won last night, had we booked our place in the Champions League final, I probably wouldn't be up at this hour the following morning. But look, here we are. Disappointing night, obviously. I think it's fair to say that the majority of the damage was done in the first leg. I think that we came here, we gave a pretty good account of ourselves in terms of, I would say, 75% of our performance, but we were missing the thing that we've been missing all season, which is that ability to really kind of kill off the opposition and put them to the sword when we create chances, when we create opportunities. So all the things that we're going to talk about today, you're not going to be surprised to hear them. And I don't know if that is something you should take encouragement from. Should you look at it and go, well, we know what the problem is. We've got a big summer coming up. We can rectify that problem and we go again, but at least we know what it is and we can deal with it. Or do you look at it and say, this has been an ongoing problem. We failed to address it so far. We've not been able to address it with the players that we have in terms of improving our efficiency in the penalty area, for example. So what gives you confidence and belief that Arsenal are going to be able to go out and do that in the summer? You can look at it glass half empty, glass half full. But let's start off with the emotion of being eliminated from the Champions League at this stage. I don't care whether you're favourites or not. Going out at this stage in Europe's premier competition, it hurts, man. It really, really does hurt. And I've woken up this morning not angry, but sad, because I really, really wanted to see this group of players, despite all the challenges they've had this season, book their place in a Champions League final and give us something as fans to look forward to. You look at how it's gone in the league, it's fallen away, it's faded away. And, we go to Anfield on Sunday as if things aren't bad enough. And we have to give them a guard of honor. That should have been us. It should have been them giving us a guard of honor. That's what we felt going into this season. And obviously that hasn't materialized for a number of reasons that we've talked about throughout the course of the campaign. So I don't want to sit and bleat on about that again. I want to talk about last night's game in the semi-final and where I think we fell short. But I think one of the things that's really kind of struck me in the post-mortem, in the analysis, in some of the rubbish online that I've read and seen, is the complete dismissal of the fact that we've made a Champions League semi-final for the first time since 2008, 2009. This is not something that we achieve every year. This is not par for Arsenal. This is beyond that. This is better than that. Had we crashed out at the quarterfinal stage, people would have been underwhelmed. And they would have said, here we go again. 2 years in a row, fallen at the same hurdle, etc., etc. We haven't got the experience, blah, blah, blah. We made it one round further. And in the Champions League, that is a significant feat. To overcome the reigning European champions, Real Madrid, in the comfortable manner that we did, and book our place in the semis, was an achievement in itself. But that's not to say that you can't or that you shouldn't feel disappointed today. Of course you should feel disappointed. But you also have to realize that the reason that you feel disappointed is because of how far we've come. And if we've come so far, then we must be generally, in the bigger picture, on the whole, doing something right. But it might take a bit of time for people to be able to process that, for that feeling to become clear because of the disappointment and the frustration, which we're all feeling this morning. I thought we started the game last night brilliantly. I talked about the need to go there and really kind of impose ourselves, not in the sense of we had to go and score early. It would have been great if we did. But for me, it was about going there, putting our foot on the ball, quelling the atmosphere a little bit. Although having been in the Parc des Princes last night, there wasn't anything really that was going to dampen that atmosphere. That was one of the most incredible atmospheres I've experienced. And I've been to a lot of football grounds. They were in there from an hour and a half before kickoff, the ultras, and they were in song constantly throughout the period leading up to the game, throughout the duration of the game, and they were in great voice afterwards as well when it became apparent that they were through to the Champions League final. And when we were driving through the streets of Paris to get back to our hotel late last night after the game, there were cars beeping, people hanging out of the windows with PSG flags, motorbikes with PSG flags. It was as if the whole centre of Paris was out celebrating the fact that Paris Saint-Germain had made it. And so that shows you what a big deal it is for them. And it shows you again that being at this stage of the competition is something to be proud of. However, again, I'll say it again before people start jumping on me in the comments. That doesn't mean you can't be disappointed. That doesn't mean you can't feel the frustration that most of us are feeling this morning. But as I say, I thought we started the game really, really well. I thought we started the game confidently. I thought we pinned PSG back. I think from a PSG perspective, they were probably okay with sitting that little bit deeper and waiting for those transitional situations. And that's the advantage that you have when you have a lead in a game. You're able to do that, right? But we wasted some really, really big early opportunities. The Declan Rice header, he's got to hit the target there. He's got to. The Martinelli one from the long throw into the penalty area, straight at Gianluigi Donnarumma. You've got to do better. Martin Odegaard had a fantastic effort from the edge of the box that Donnarumma got down to and turned around the post. The more I watch that, the more I think it's an unbelievable save. And so I don't want to sort of point the finger at Martin Odegaard in that instance. But generally speaking, we created opportunities early in the game and we needed to show that clinical edge. We needed to show the ability to take one of those chances, because I tell you what, that would have swung the momentum of the tie. I kind of feel like our confident start, in a weird way, actually led to us maybe being overly expansive at times and put us in a situation where we really started to believe, to the point where we were taking, I thought, unnecessary risks. I thought some of the passes that we were playing out from the back and some of the passes into midfield and that we were attempting through the lines were really, really risky. And we conceded 3 or 4 really good opportunities on the counter-attack because we gave the ball away sloppily. Not because PSG won it back deep and produced wonderful long balls into spaces and caused us problems, because we gifted them to them. And that was my frustration at half-time. It was like, we're a goal down, and we're a goal down because we've given you chances. The first one, the first PSG goal, Fabian Ruiz gets the ball on the edge of the box. Brilliant finish, left-footed. Goalkeeper can't get anywhere near it. And you look at that and you think, that is quality versus what we're producing in the final third, which is timid, to put it bluntly. You know, we don't have that killer instinct. And people, I was having an argument, not an argument, but a debate with some friends in a WhatsApp group after the game who said they're not a better team than us. And I said, well, no, they are. They absolutely are a better team than us. Why are they a better team than us? Well, they have a better goalkeeper than us. A goalkeeper that on the biggest stage can produce world-class saves. That's not to say, by the way, I'm blaming David Raya. That's not to say that David Raya is not a top goalkeeper. He is. But Gianluigi Donnarumma produced world-class performances in both legs of this game. That's not luck. That's quality. You know, you look at the balance that they had in the midfield. I think it was pretty even in the second leg, actually. And I think that the advantage that they had in the first leg was massive in the context of this tie. And I will continue to bemoan that yellow card that Thomas Partey picked up in the Bernabeu that saw him ruled out, because I think that really made a big difference. But in the final third, again, they've got quality. They've got players that are capable of taking their chances. They've got fullbacks that can get forward and really impact on the attacks. I'm not sure that we have the same weaponry. In fact, I know we don't have the same weaponry that PSG have. And that's what, you know, I mean when I say that they're a better team than us. Are they well coached? Yes, fantastically coached. Do they have more talented players? In some areas, yeah. In other areas, I'd say it's pretty even, but they've got that killer instinct. They've got that ability to put the ball in the back of the net. They've got that creativity in the final third where they can make things happen off the cuff. And it feels to me like we're so rigid in our system at times that, you know, we don't see enough of that from Arsenal. But also, I look at the profile of the players. You know, for me, Martinelli is a system player more than he is an individual maverick that you can let off the lead and allow to go and roam and do what he thinks is best. Basically, if you keep Bukayo Saka quiet, you keep Arsenal's attack quiet, particularly during this period where Martin Odegaard's nowhere near his best. So if I look back on the first half specifically, I thought we started it really, really well. I thought we started to lose control because we started to get silly. I think we started to take gambles and risks that we never really needed to take. And, you know, we weren't exactly in the last 20 minutes still a goal down. There was no need for panic stations at that point. Yet that sort of confidence start, it seemed to embolden us and put us in a position where we were starting to believe. And obviously you need that belief, but you also need to control it. You need to make sure that you stay switched on. And you had Miles Lewis-Skelly giving the ball away on countless occasions. Thomas Partey losing it in the middle of the park. William Saliba played a really silly pass at one stage. I'm pretty sure Jakub Kiwior got one horribly wrong as well. And all that was doing was gifting a very good side opportunities to break on us and opportunities to get their really smart and unpredictable attacking players running at us and putting us on the back foot. And it was always going to end in a disaster. We had warning signs. We had a situation where David Raya made a save down to his right. We had Kvaratskhelia hitting the post. We had warning signs, yet we continue to do the same thing. Now, if you get to the last half an hour and you're taking risks because you're throwing everything forward and you're desperately trying to find a way back in the game, I can live with that. I could deal with that. We needed to play high-risk football at some point simply because we were trailing in the tie. But I felt that we kind of got sucked into playing that way a little bit too early. And you go in at half-time and there's a huge amount of frustration. Huge amount of frustration. I didn't think that Declan Rice looked right last night. If we're going to talk about some individuals, I thought that he was not quite at his brilliant best physically. And I kind of felt that was the case on a couple of occasions where I really kind of expected him to either charge forward with the ball in possession or close someone down, go towards a loose ball in an attempt to gather it. It just felt like he was missing that half a yard. Was he carrying something? Maybe. He's too good a player to leave out, and I'm sure he would have been desperate to play in a Champions League semi-final. Now, I don't know for sure that that was the case, but it didn't feel, watching from inside the Parc des Princes, that Declan Rice was at his brilliant physical best. I thought Miles Lewis-Skelly struggled last night really badly. Prime example of a player that I think got carried away by the confident start and started to do things that were risky. You know, he's great at protecting the ball. He's great at holding people off. He's great at carrying it. But there's a time and a place where you do that. And there are times and places where you shouldn't do that. And I felt like his judgment was a little bit clouded last night. Now, on the one hand, I kind of applaud the bravery, but in the other sense, I think he needed to be a bit more streetwise. Now, I'm saying this about Miles Lewis-Skelly. I don't doubt for a second that he'll learn from this and he'll come back from this. He's got the right attitude. We've seen it over and over again. He's a fantastic young lad and he's got a bright future. But he was a weak link for us last night. There's no question about it. I guess, you know, we can dive into the sort of tactical side a little bit more over the coming days. And I am going to rewatch the game when I get back to London. So, you know, I do feel like I'll probably have more sort of tactical points to make when I get to that point and when I've sort of calmed down a little bit and the emotion subsided and I can actually sit down and watch it again. But one thought that I had during the game kind of really summed it up for me, really summed up where we are and why essentially this season we've fallen short in the league. I would make the argument that actually getting to the Champions League semi-final, given that we only got back in the competition last year, it's a pretty good showing in terms of the Champions League. But it's everything else that's happened this season that makes it a bitter pill to swallow, because for such a long time, all our eggs have been in this Champions League basket. So we're now in this place where I think we're overreacting to a Champions League exit, which can happen against a team that could well go on and win this competition. we're overreacting to it because of the frustration that we're carrying based on what's happened in the league, in the FA Cup, in the Carabao Cup, etc., etc. So it's really important that you separate the two things. But this was a thought that I had during the game that really kind of summed where we're at up for me. I was watching PSG, and when they were coming forward, they were coming down the flanks with Nuno Mendes or Achraf Hakimi. Now, they didn't do it as often as they would have liked last night, but you had those guys coming down the flanks. People like Kvicha Kvaratskhelia playing in the half spaces when the fullbacks were bringing the width. Then you had Desiree Doué playing as a kind of centre forward, but obviously having that license to drift. Bradley Barcola was more than happy to go into those areas as well. Vitinha backing it up, Fabian Ruiz backing it up, Joao Neves getting high up and squeezing. And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, right, that's how PSG attack. That's their model. They get it out to the wingers, who are very, very good in those 1v1 situations, very unpredictable, very difficult to keep a lid on. But they also have those marauding fullbacks that can get forward and have quality clearly. Nuno Mendes scored a fantastic goal against Aston Villa. Achraf Hakimi scored a fantastic goal against us last night. These guys, they have that level. Look at that versus what we have. And this was, as I say, the thought that came into my head towards the end of the game that for me summed up where we're at. PSG have got those guys flying down the right and left hand side, causing problems, causing mischief. What do we have? We've got centre backs, because let's make no mistake about it, before he came to Arsenal, Jurrien Timber was a centre back, and then he was replaced by Ben White, another player who came to the club as a centre back, and we finished the game with Riccardo Calafiori at left back. So we finished the game with centre backs playing at full back, trying to get down the wing and put crosses into the box for not strikers, but for midfielders. That in itself tells you that we've got a problem. And the pushback to that will be, yeah, but we're without Kai Havertz and we're without Gabriel Jesus. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this position. And I agree with that. But this is the same Kai Havertz that most people would tell you isn't clinical enough. This is the same Gabriel Jesus that most people would tell you throughout his Arsenal career and going back to his Manchester City days hasn't been clinical enough. So whatever way you look at it, we are missing something. Player availability has been a big problem. And I've talked about it a lot this season because I really do think it's had a huge impact on what we've been able to do and the level we've been able to reach. But at the same time, if you don't feel that those players are the solution anyway, then you have to look at the recruitment. And I said it at the time, and I'll say it again. The fact that we didn't go out and bring in a forward in January, whether it be someone on a short-term deal, someone that was maybe a bit of a veteran, someone that has got the kind of experience under their belt, just to give us that natural option, that was criminal. And Clive Palmer said it on this podcast just the other day, and I thought he was absolutely right. Mikel Merino, to a degree, has saved our season by going in up front and doing a really, really good job. He's been plugging a hole, filling a gap, solving an issue for us temporarily. But it was never going to be the long-term solution. And when you get to the highest level, which the Champions League semi-final is, you're going to be found out. You're going to be found out. Saved your season how, says Sir Boss Lord, in the sense of he kept us alive. Kept us alive in the Champions League, even when we didn't have a forward. That's my point. So, look, we are in a position where, you know, we've got a hell of a lot of work to do come the summer. And given the squad building all the way up until last summer, we shouldn't be in this position. We shouldn't be in a position where, again, we need to make lots of changes and we need to do lots of business. I get that there's player turnover. It exists. It's a thing. And I understand that players are going to leave and players get to certain ages in their careers and all the rest of it. And you always need to ensure that, you know, you're changing with the times. But yeah, difficult, man. Difficult one to take. I mean, look, I got to say as well, I took issue with some of Mikel Arteta's post-match comments. I got to say this. I think he's done a good job overall. I think he's a really good manager. I think he's a really intelligent man. And I do think that sometimes he says things because he wants the narrative to go in a certain way, because he wants to try and control that narrative. And I understand that as part of management, psychology, all the rest of it. But sometimes I just want him to take some accountability. And it's not a case of me wanting to sit there and go, you're the problem, blah, blah, blah. I'm not looking for someone to point the finger at. I think as a collective, as a football club, we've made a lot of mistakes over the last year and a half that have ultimately led us to this point where our season has kind of fallen away. And again, I'll stress and reiterate the point, getting to the Champions League semi-final, it's a good achievement. It's not success, but it's a good achievement, and it's something that you can build on at least. But we're in this place now, right, where as fans, we're all deflated, we're all frustrated. We want the manager to just say it as it is, and unfortunately for me, Mikel Arteta finds it really difficult to do that in the immediate aftermath of a defeat. He says things like, we were the better team over the two legs. We weren't the better team over the two legs. We weren't. And there's a lot of people out there that are quite big on their statistics, and they'll talk about those. And, I got a lot of friends that do this. Someone brought this up to me yesterday because they read it on Twitter. And it was PSG over the two legs. Their XG was 3.08. Arsenal's was 5.11. Therefore, Arsenal were the better team. No, it's not how it works. Put the stats to one side for a minute. Stats should help you paint a picture. They don't paint the full picture. Because the amount of times this season we've heard, we were the better team, we dominated the game, blah, 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 but the goalkeeper hasn't even had to make a meaningful save. I'm fed up of it. I don't want to hear that. After last night, I don't want to hear talk about us being the better team. We're not the better team. We're not better than PSG. They have a better balance than us. They have more brilliance in the final third than us. They have arguably the best goalkeeper in the world. They've got things that we don't have. They've got one of the best coaches in the world. Luis Enrique is that. Luis Enrique's achieved wonderful things as a football manager. There needs to be an accountability taken. We need to hear people come out and say, look, we weren't good enough, and leave it at that. The pushback will be, well, actually what Mikel is doing is he's trying to protect these players. But you don't need to throw them under the bus. There's a middle ground in between. You don't need to go in on them and throw them under the bus, but you also don't need to try and pretend or create a false narrative that Arsenal were the better side. We weren't the better side. Look at the efficiency that PSG showed in the final third. Now, if as a manager, you sit in pretty much every press conference and you say, we need to be more efficient in both boxes, it's about what happens in both boxes, then when your team does not produce in both boxes, you can't then sit there and say we were the better team, because to say that is to fundamentally ignore one of the most important parts of the game, which is putting the ball in the back of the damn net. It's not happening. It's not happening at the minute, not anywhere near regularly enough. And yes, we've got problems, and yes, we've got players missing and all the rest of it, but we've got to produce more, and it's just not happening. And, this season has fizzled out in a really kind of disappointing way, and we're going to have to do a lot of business in the summer to put that right. We're going to have to do a lot of business in the summer to try yeah, we're going to have to try and get ourselves back on the right track. I'm just looking at the comments. I've sort of been a little bit sort of in the zone this morning. I haven't really been looking at them. I can see that Lee Gunner is in the chat, and obviously we've got different views, and that's fine. But he says, why don't you say that when you get the chance to then? Well, I didn't get the chance to ask a question in the press conference yesterday. Otherwise, my question was going to be something along the lines of, why is it that you think you were the better team after that comment? Because I can't see in what way Arsenal have been the better team than PSG over the course of the two legs. And people will point to that XG stat again. That's not enough for me. XG, it's one way in which you can analyze a game, but it's not the be all and end all. And if you don't put the ball in the back of the net, who cares? If who cares if you you got the XG on the board? And then he says, but you have before. I haven't heard Mikel Arteta come out after a game in which we were clearly second best and be that forthright about the fact that we were the better team. And he claimed that the PSG bench had told him that. I mean, Luis Enrique then denied that afterwards. Look, anyway, I'm not interested in getting into wars of words with people online. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to bring a podcast to the listeners that tune in on a regular basis. Like, people have different views, and that's absolutely fine. There's not an issue with that, but let's not pretend that people have said things they haven't said and all the rest of it. Like, I had someone this morning, right? And this is the kind of toxicity that results and performances. Even look, the performance wasn't terrible last night, but this is the type of thing that these debates end up bringing. I had someone, right, I've never come across before, tag me on Instagram in a post that they put out when I said that there were people that, for whatever reason, mainly I think down to their ego, partly because they want to make as much money as possible from their streams as well, which they're well within their rights to do, I suppose. I said there are people out there that will ignore all the predictions that they got horribly wrong, like Mikel Arteta as a championship manager. Mikel Arteta won't get Arsenal beyond 8th, all of that. Mikel Arteta will never get Arsenal back in the Champions League, let alone to the semi-finals. They've been proven wrong so many times over the years, but they only choose to hone in on the things that they got wrong rather than discuss the things that they got right, rather than discuss the multiple things that they got wrong. And someone that I don't know tagged me and he goes, this guy Harry is a muppet, man. He doesn't want to lose the special access he gets at Arsenal. So he's got to keep the act up that everything's okay. I've literally sat here for 27 minutes criticising Arsenal's performance, criticising the recruitment, which I've done countless times. And it's this narrative, this silly narrative that is being created online, where it says, Harry can't say this because he won't get any special access. I would love one of the people that says that to come out and explain to me what the special access I get is. I get the same access that every single other member of the press, no matter how critical they are, gets, because that is the requirement. As a football club, you have to give that to the media because that's what you're obligated to do. So this idea that I'm never critical is stupid and silly and misguided. I am critical, but because I don't sit here, in the middle of the night with a whiskey in my hand, shouting F this and F that, and that player's rubbish and that player's crap and all the rest of it, that doesn't mean I'm not critical. I do it in a different way. I do it in my way. That's my style. It's my podcast. I can say it, do it, convey it in any way that I want. But yeah, anyway, let's talk about a couple more of the kind of talking points from last night's game. It felt to me, that Mikel Arteta post-match was really hurt. And I think sometimes people say stupid things when they're hurt. I think sometimes people say things they don't necessarily mean. And I think that works on both sides of the fence. That works for us as fans, and it works as management and as players and all the rest of it. I think when you feel the pain that we felt last night and you feel the anguish of an exit like that, I think you got to take a step back before you can really analyze it, and really kind of break it down. Look, this is the kind of crap, right, that you get in the chat. You know what? I'm trying to keep it as Chronicles of a Gooner as it is, as I can, right? Because that's what we do here, right? If you want something else, if you want people to F and blind and all the rest of it, this ain't the podcast for you. It's not the one. And that's okay. You might have a preference to go and watch and consume different Arsenal content, no problem. But I'm not going to get dragged into I'm not going to be influenced in the way that I talk about my football club based on what people. But this is the kind of crap you get. Look, I'll just highlight it because of how stupid it is. You are critical, but it's very sanitized criticism. Surely you just be getting fed up of not winning. What's sanitized criticism? Criticism is criticism, right? Saying something is wrong is saying something is wrong. Do you only ever get a point across by screaming and shouting? Is that what sanitized criticism is? Criticism without shouting and screaming. Madness. Like people think I don't care. I can promise you that I care probably more about this football club than 99% of people out there. So don't give me that nonsense, sanitized criticism and all the rest of it. Look at this. PMZ Films. Polite and respectful is why we haven't won any trophies for 5 years. Yes, because of the way that I talk about Arsenal, that is what has denied Arsenal silverware over the last 5 years. Listen to the nonsense that some people spout out. Listen to the nonsense that some people spout out. Lee Gunner says, you said you would like someone to explain, so let me explain. I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but mate, honestly, this is the podcast that I do. People tune in for. There's a lot of people that like your content and they will go over and they will watch your content, and that's fine. There's a lot of people on this channel that don't like your content and will watch different type of content, which is what this is. I'm not going to get into a slanging match for the next half an hour when I've got a Eurostar to catch to get back to London. Okay, it's not going to happen today. We can have a debate another day, but it ain't going to happen today. And it's not me swerving it. I've got a journey to make. I've got a trip to get back to London because I'm in Paris at the moment. So when people tell me, oh, you don't care and you don't, do you know how much money I've pumped into going into Europe for the Champions League this season? Apparently, I don't care. That's right. I get special privileges, don't I? That's right. Everybody else pays for me to do everything, don't they? Yep. That's right. That's why my criticism is sanitized. Absolute madness. Absolute madness. Anyway, overall thoughts then. Let's just wrap this up because I do have to dash. Massive feeling of disappointment this morning, obviously. Really gutted that we haven't managed to make it through to the Champions League final. And whatever way you package it up, that disappointment is not gonna subside anytime soon. I remember the 08-09 semi-final. That took me ages to get over. And I think for me personally, it's harder because this is the one I want to win. This is the one I really, really want to win. I've never seen Arsenal win the Champions League. I've never seen Arsenal achieve European glory. And so for me, it's at the top of my list. I'd love us to win the Premier League, but when you've won the league as Invincibles, I don't think you're ever going to top that. So for me, it's all about the Champions League. It's all about Europe in terms of that priority. And when you miss out, it hurts because, as I said earlier, we don't get to semi-finals that often. And so when you get there and you fall short, it hurts because you know that it's such a long journey to get to where we've got to, and it's not something you're going to achieve every season. So yeah, disappointment, deflation. I want to watch the game back again before I make sort of a real kind of tactical analysis of it. But generally, again, we weren't potent enough in the final third. We didn't do our job in the final third. We gave away some really silly opportunities, particularly in the first half, when I thought we got a little bit carried away by the early sort of spirited start that we'd made. And we ended up in a situation where, you know, once we conceded the first goal, it was always going to be a mountain to climb. I tried to stay positive at that point, and I sort of thought to myself, well, we needed to score 2 goals to go through anyway. So the mindset should be the same. We still need to score 2 goals. But obviously that would have been 2 goals just to keep ourselves in the tie, and that proved too much. We did pull it back to 2-1, and then Bukayo Saka had a stunning opportunity, a really good opportunity to turn it in and make it 2-2, and that would have set up quite the grandstand finish, I'd imagine, but it wasn't to be. The minute he missed that chance, you knew it was over. And yeah, we go again. Right, gotta go. Heading off. Got a Eurostar to catch within the hour, so I need to make my way across to the station. Player ratings will be out with patrons a little bit later on in the day. I'm not sure I'll be able to upload it while I'm on the Eurostar. The signal's not great, but I will get that recorded while I'm sitting there, and then I'll upload that at the earliest opportunity for our patrons. Thank you so much. Don't forget to leave a like on the video if you haven't done so already. Subscribe to the channel if you're brand new. And listen, again, we've all got different opinions, and that's fine. No issue with that. But if you're going to sit there and pretend that, you know, because you don't like Mikel Arteta, you've got everything right, then let's have a look in the mirror as well, right? Someone said something about me looking in the mirror. Hold on, let me just quickly address that comment. Where is it? No, was this the one I saw? Shaw Sin says, Harry, sorry to say this, you're deluded for not standing up and saying the things that needed to be said about Arsenal's transfer window. Go back to my podcast and watch them. 5 seasons, no trophies, spent £800 million. Next season, FC. Apparently, I wasn't critical of the transfer window. Prime example of someone who doesn't listen or watch this, but claims to understand my opinion on the whole. It is what it is. It's what we're dealing with nowadays. Anyway, I'm off. See you all later. And thanks for tuning in. As always, I'll see you all on the next one. Until then, take care. Goodbye.